It is Overreaction Wednesday because Evan Mobley just changed the ceiling for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Let's talk about it on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like The Inside Shot, my new Substack, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making this edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen today and making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. Let's help grow this show because Cavs basketball is back, and I don't want your friends to be without Cavs basketball coverage. You can also check us out on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that like button for me, click the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you know when the latest Locked On Cavs content is coming your way. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. So Tuesday night, the Cavs open up their preseason. They lost to the Chicago Bulls. We don't care about that. The result does not matter. What matters is how good Evan Mobley looked. I was thoroughly impressed with what I saw from Evan Mobley in his preseason debut for this year. He looked the most aggressive I think Evan has ever looked on offense, where, there have been times where we've seen flashes of this stuff, right? Where, it just leaves that you wanting more, if I guess is probably the best way to say it. I thought Evan looked like a complete offensive basketball player. I know he didn't make either of the three-pointers he took in his 19 minutes, but he was so aggressive. He was so forceful. He looked so much stronger that if this is the version of Evan Mobley the Cavs are going to get in the 2024-2025 season, the ceiling needs to be adjusted on this team. Because this guy, the version we saw of Evan Mobley against the Bulls in the preseason opener, and I get it, it's preseason. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. I totally understand that. But if this is who Evan Mobley is going to be when the regular season rolls around, one, Evan Mobley is an all-star. I have no doubt about that. And two, the Cavs are going to be a much better team than a lot of people think the Cavs are going to be. Evan Mobley, I still think, has room to grow based on this, but Tuesday night was an excellent sign. There were things he did that were real eyebrow-raising moments for me. And I did think that it was not by accident that the very first possession of the game, the ball was in Evan Mobley's hands. The Cavs, Jared Allen defeated Nikola Vucevic for the opening tip. So the Cavs got the ball. Evan Mobley ended up with the ball on the left wing, one-on-one with Patrick Williams of Chicago, who's a solid defender. 4 dribbles, doesn't quite get him under the basket, but Evan gets to a spot that is more than comfortable enough for him. And I just thought the fact that not that move in particular, not that play in particular, because I think we've seen Evan do this stuff a bunch. That's a place he's comfortable. He's comfortable with that type of move. But the fact that it was the first play, the fact that that is where the Cavs went right away, I think was a signal that they've talked very highly of Evan throughout this preseason. But I think that was a signal of this team, of Kenny Atkinson, the new head coach, saying, this guy is going to be different. It's going to be different for Evan Mobley now. And I'm going to play on YouTube what that looks like, and I'll keep talking over it so you won't notice on the podcast. But Evan attacking the basket, Evan being aggressive, it does so much for Evan, but it does a lot for the rest of his teammates too. That is something that I think can help this team so much. It can get the Cavs so much better if they get, even if Evan's not putting up the numbers that he put up on Tuesday night, where he had 19 points in 19 minutes. I believe he was 9 of 13 from the floor, so he was super efficient, had 6 rebounds, just all around had a really good game. If the scoring's not always there, because it's not always going to be there, teams are going to play him differently. Some teams are going to say, no, you're not going to beat us scoring. We're going to make the guards beat us. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to think. That's going to happen at times. But the aggressiveness, the urgency that Evan Mobley played with, those things can be repeated on a night in, night out basis. The efficiency isn't going to be an every night thing. That's not a fair thing to think. He's not going to lead the team in shot attempts every night. He's not going to lead the team in scoring every night. But can he lead the team in being aggressive? And I know that's a tangible thing. It's not something that it's not quantifiable. But can he lead the team in being aggressive? Can he lead the team in playing with the sense of urgency that he very clearly had on Tuesday? If he does those things, Evan Mobley is going to be awesome because the skill set has always been there. It's always been there. I do think, too, we saw our first glimpse on Tuesday night of what a bulked up Evan Mobley looks like. I asked him on media day about, what his offseason was like, and he talked about being in the weight room. He did not want to share with the media how much weight he put on, but he looked stronger. Like he looked physically bigger at media day. And then you get to Tuesday night against the Bulls, and he looked stronger. And it was something I asked him about after the game, and he said that he feels stronger. And I do think that is something that you can see that's evident in some of the drives to the basket that he made. Like he had a play where he got the ball in the right corner. It was in the second quarter, took a couple dribbles around Vucevic and dunked with his left hand. I think that is partially the result of some added strength. I think that is the result of a really good offseason. There was another one where the ball kind of got stripped out of him, but he was able to recover it and still go up strong. I thought Evan Mobley, what he did on Tuesday was fantastic. And when you think about that strength, I think it directly correlates, and the added weight too. I think it directly correlates to the aggressiveness and the urgency that he played with, because I think he's got more confidence because of that. We can talk about the jumper, which I do think looks much better. Neither of the two jumpers that he took went in from beyond the 3-point line. That's fine. The fact that he took two of them in 19 minutes, I think that's a win for the Cavs, because if you bounce that out to like a per 36 type thing, he's taking 4 3-pointers per 36 minutes. That's a good place for the Cavs to be. I think Kenny Atkinson would be very happy with that. I believe it was Jackson Flickinger of Fear the Sword who asked Kenny after the game about that. And that's something, Kenny said that is a place that he wants to be. And we can talk more about the game plan and just, I don't want to say game plan, but like nuances of the way Kenny wants things to work coming up in a little bit. But with Evan, I thought that was the right number of shots for him from the outside. I thought his shot diet was very good. I thought he was aggressive. I thought he did a good job pushing the ball in transition. We're going to talk about pace coming up in just a little bit on this edition of Locked On Cavs. But there was nothing that I saw from Evan Mobley on Tuesday night that I didn't like. I loved what I saw from him. I loved how he attacked defenders. I loved how aggressive he was. And if this is who Evan Mobley is going to be, the Cavs are going to be a much better team than anyone thinks right now. Like 55 wins on the table. If this Evan Mobley shows up every night, they're a team that can win 55 games. And I still think there's a lot we don't know, because we really, I don't want to say only saw Evan in one lineup tonight, but all 19 of his minutes, he played with Jared Allen, which is important, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. Now, Max Strus had to leave the game. I'll talk about that coming up too. So Dean Wade filled in for him for a couple of shifts with the Cavs starters. But Evan Mobley didn't play without the rest of the core four on Tuesday night. And I do think that aggressiveness coming from Evan while sharing the floor with Jared Allen, which for spacing purposes is important. Like, it's important that he was this aggressive while not necessarily operating in as much space as he could have in some other lineups, particularly ones where he's at center. So I think that matters. And the fact Donovan Mitchell was on the floor for all of this, I think that matters, because it can be very easy to take a backseat to Donovan Mitchell when Evan's on the floor with him, because Donovan is still and will continue to be the best player on this basketball team. And when push comes to shove, you want the ball in Donovan Mitchell's hands. It's a little bit easier, I think, to be more aggressive than Donovan in a preseason game, especially when it's, we're not in a situation where Donovan Mitchell has to prove anything. Like, he's going to be great. But the fact that he did this, that he was this urgent, that he was this aggressive, that he was this forceful with the rest of the core four on the floor with him, I think that is an awesome sign. So if this is the guy that shows up when the regular season starts, the Cavs are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference. And Evan Mobley, he's going to be an all-star. Those things are entirely possible if we keep seeing this, and we can see more from him, because think about what some lineups can look like. Maybe when you've got Darius Garland, 3 other shooters, and Evan Mobley on the floor, there's going to be a ton of space for Evan. If he brings this same aggressiveness, if he brings this same mindset and same strength and same will to the basket, to those groupings, to those situations, he's going to be very, very difficult for opposing defenses to deal with. He is. So I think you should be very excited about what we saw. And I get it. It's preseason. You don't want to read too much into it. But it's hard not to be excited about how good Evan Mobley was on Tuesday night in the preseason opener. I also think it's hard not to be excited about just how fast the Cavs played on Tuesday night. Their pace was off the charts. We're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. It is spooky season, right? Everyone loves to get to dress up for Halloween. Maybe it's time to be cozy at home. And Halloween, of course, lets us have fun with the things that scare us. That's kind of the whole point of Halloween. But what about those fears that don't necessarily involve zombies or ghosts? What is something that scares you? Share a fear right now. It could be small, could be big. Maybe it is a zombie. Maybe it is a ghost. Maybe it's something else. But therapy is a great tool for facing those fears and finding ways to overcome them. And I'm not talking about the zombies and the ghosts here. I'm talking about other things, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing your fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. Like, that is something that absolutely is a real thing. So if you feel like you're in that situation, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is the place to go. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try today. It is entirely online. It is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. I think all 3 of those things are very, very important. So just go out, fill out a brief questionnaire, and you can get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. It can be difficult to find a therapist sometimes that works best for you. So BetterHelp allowing you to switch therapists at any time for no additional charge, I think that's a really big deal, and something that, if you need to, definitely take advantage of that. So overcome your fears this spooky season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for 10% off your first month. Again, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today, and you can get 10% off your first month. So the Cavs lost to the Chicago Bulls, preseason game number 1. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today as we discuss what we saw on Tuesday night. After you're done with this, make Locked On NBA your second listen today, because the Cavs and the Bulls were not the only game going on. I know there are other teams you want to learn about, you want to hear about. We're learning a ton about the Cavs right now. There are other teams that you can be learning about too. Go over to Locked On NBA. There are a large group of local and national experts that will keep you informed, entertained, and provide all the insight that you need, not just for the Cavs, but all 30 NBA teams. Locked On NBA can be found anywhere you get your podcast. Just search it on Apple, Spotify, and we're also available on YouTube. And you know this already, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the things I was very interested in, aside from Evan Mobley, for Tuesday night's game against the Bulls, was to see just how fast are the Cavs going to play under Kenny Atkinson. There's been a lot of talk about pace, and the Cavs were, over the last couple of years, one of the slowest teams in the league. And again, pace is not a measure of good or bad. It is fast or slow. You can be awesome and play slow. You can be terrible and play fast. You can be awesome and play fast. You can be terrible and play slow. It's not an indicator of good basketball. It's an indicator of style of basketball. And it's clear Kenny Atkinson wants the style of basketball that the Cleveland Cavaliers are playing to change. Just how clear it was Tuesday night against the Bulls. This is according to NBA.com stats. Against the Bulls on Tuesday night, the Cleveland Cavaliers had a pace of 117. I'm going to let that sit with you for a second. 117 is absolutely absurd. That is flying. That would be an NBA record for the fastest paced team in the history of this league. For comparison's sake, last year, the Washington Wizards, I mentioned, pace doesn't mean good or bad. The Washington Wizards were the fastest paced team in the NBA. Their pace was 103. The Cavs were at 117 on Tuesday night. I think that this is something where the Cavs are sort of over exaggerating where they want to be. Like, this is not a sustainable thing. They will not play at a pace of 117 for the regular season. That will not be the case. I haven't asked about that, but it's just not sustainable. There's no way this happens. What I did though, because I was so interested in this during the game, I wanted to track it in my own way where, I don't have access to the live pace numbers that the NBA does. So what I did was for the first 3 quarters, I did not do this once the starters and key reserves subbed out and we started to see some of the younger guys like Craig Porter Jr. and Jaylon Tyson and JT Thor and Luke Travers. I didn't track it for that group. So I just did the first 3 quarters. So what I did was I wrote down how many seconds were left on the shot clock when the Cavs got into their initial offensive action. Now, I defined this as maybe the ball handler, I should say. This is not football. This is basketball. The ball handler would speed up, would hit like a sudden burst, because I think that is basically something that put pressure on the defense. At what point did we first see the Cavs put pressure on the Chicago defense? What point in the shot clock? I calculated it up, and the Cavs on average on Tuesday night got into their offense or put pressure on the defense, if you want to say it like that, with 19.69 seconds left on the shot clock. I think that's a pretty nice place to be. I thought that they did a good job of flying up and down the court, but they weren't ever out of control. And I think that's an important thing to bring up too. Like, if this team, it's the old adage, you want to be quick, but don't hurry. I thought the Cavs did a good job of that, particularly in the first half. Their pace was quicker in the first half. I believe that average shot clock time in the first half was 20.2. In the second half, it was 18.5. In the third quarter, I should say. So it did dip. Kenny Atkinson was asked about that after the game. He talked about how maybe there was a little bit of a lack of focus coming out of the locker room. So that is something that, and this is very much a Rome was not built in a day type of situation here too. It's not fair to expect the Cavs to have this down right away. They don't. But I did think that Tuesday night against Chicago was a good step in the right direction, where they are learning they can do it. And I think it's different doing this and practicing and playing this way in scrimmages behind closed doors when you're going up against your own teammates, when you're in a controlled environment, compared to doing this in a game that, yes, the outcome does not matter. Like the fact that they lost to the Chicago Bulls on Tuesday means nothing. But it's a different environment. There are rules in place. There are people watching. It's our first chance to get to see this. And I do think it matters that they were able to, at least for the first half, sustain playing at a fast pace. Now, that fast pace meant a lot of three-pointers early in the shot clock. I believe they shot 48 threes on Tuesday night, which is a very high number. But it's a number that I don't know that they want to be. I don't know that they will be that high. I don't know that they're going to be a team that averages around 50, but I would bet on them averaging around 45. I think that's probably the place they're going to live this season. And to do that, you have to play at a faster pace. You have to be able to play at that sort of pace if you're going to get those threes up. If you want to get up as many shots as you can, which isn't the end goal here. They're not trying to be the 7 seconds or less Suns. And that is something that we do need to know. Like, they're not trying to break records that way. But I mean, they took 108 shots on Tuesday. That's a ton of shots. Like, that does not happen very often in NBA games. It does not. So the pace is something that they're still going to be working on. I don't expect them to play at the exact pace. I don't expect them to play quite as fast as they did on Tuesday night, but it's something that I think Cavs fans should be encouraged by, because this, if nothing else, signals that this team has bought into a change in the way things are done offensively. When you combine the pace with how aggressive and urgent Evan Mobley played and how strong he looks, I think Cavs fans should be really, really excited about what this offense can look like, because there's still so much we haven't seen. There's still a ton we haven't seen. We saw one basically small variation of a lineup with the starters. We did not see any reserves other than Dean Wade play a single second with starters, although Sam Merrill might have played a couple. But like, that is the type of thing that, okay, we can see that there's still so much we haven't seen, if that makes sense. There's still so much yet to come. So I think this offense is going to be in a really good place. And I think that it's not going to be quite as fast as it was at its fastest on Tuesday, but the Cavs are not going to be a slow team anymore. They're not going to be bottom 10 in the league in pace. I would bet on that. I absolutely would. So, as I mentioned earlier, Max Strus had to leave Tuesday's game. We'll talk about a potential update on that. And Jaylon Tyson got his first NBA minutes. We will talk about how that went on this edition of Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is, as you know, what am I going to say here? I'm going to say FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and it's the place to go when you get a hunch in the middle of the game. Maybe this was the case on Tuesday night for you. Got a hunch, hey, Evan Mobley, that first possession was awesome. I think he's going to have a really good night. Go to FanDuel, see what they've got there. Maybe you're going to be watching the Cleveland Guardians game on Wednesday as they try and take control of the ALDS against the Detroit Tigers, and you're going to see how that first inning goes. You're going to get a hunch, and you're going to want to maybe make a wager on the Guardians to win. I sure hope they do. So what you can do is you can go on the FanDuel app, and you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. But wait, there's more. And if you're new to FanDuel, you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. Maybe that first $5 bet is on the Guardians to win. I hope it is. I hope they win. I hope you win. And I hope you enjoy that $200 in bonus bets that is coming your way guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. So head on over to America's #1 sportsbook. Where's that? That's FanDuel. Of course, you knew that. Go to FanDuel. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook right now, giving you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Head on over to FanDuel, FanDuel.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Be a friend, tell a friend about the show, drop a 5-star rating, say some nice words in a review. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Let's grow this show. I think this is awesome Cavs content. I want your friends. I want your family. I want everyone you know that's a Cavs fan to have awesome Cavs content, because they deserve it. And let's be honest, this team's a lot of fun to talk about. I love getting to talk with you guys about the Cavs every single day. And I want more people to be able to talk about the Cavs with selfishly. I think it's a really cool thing. You can also check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this right now, hit that thumbs up button for me, hit the subscribe button for me, and click the notification bell for me, because there's a lot of good stuff coming your way on Locked On Cavs, and I want you to know about it as soon as it is available. So the other news of note that came out of the Tuesday night game against the Bulls for the Cavs, their first preseason game, Max Strus had to leave the game in the first half with what was deemed a right hip contusion. I asked Kenny Atkinson about this after the game. He didn't have an update. I don't know that this is something that sounds super serious. I certainly hope not. Like, the Cavs were healthy for 7, 8, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So that's not necessarily a great thing, but I don't have any reason to believe right now that this is going to be a big deal for Max Strus. The other thing, Jaylon Tyson played his first NBA minutes. Yes, they're not real minutes because they're in the preseason. He did score his first basket. I thought Jalen did some good things, but I think there are a lot of kinks that need to be worked out with this game offensively. What he does, though, and what I was most impressed by with Jalen, was he can just go rebound the ball, man. And that is something that the Cavs need on the wing. Like, they have a need at his position for someone who can rebound. And Jalen has shown that he can do that. He did not play until the fourth quarter last night. His first action was the start of the fourth quarter. He led the team in rebounding. Now, it's not as if the other guys that played in the first three quarters got full minutes loads, because that wasn't the case either. But in 12 minutes, he pulled down, I believe it was 7 rebounds. He has shown at every step of the way he can rebound for them. That's something that I think is a real plus. I thought defensively he was solid. I thought he made some energetic, some hustle plays. But I think if and when he starts getting real minutes in the rotation when the regular season arrives, I don't know that it's going to be opening night. I would bet against that being opening night. But when he gets to the point where he is contributing to this team in the regular season, I think a big way he's going to earn his minutes is because the Cavs need guys on the wing that can rebound, and Jaylon Tyson has shown that he can do that he's up to the task, and they just don't have a ton of options there. So I did like what I saw in that sense. He needs to shore up some things offensively still. He's not all the way there, and he's not a finished product, and no one is expecting him to be a finished product. But I did like some of the things that I saw on Tuesday night. I didn't think Craig Porter Jr. necessarily had his best game. I thought JT Thor showed some flashes. I thought it was a cool moment for Luke Travers to be able to get his first bucket in a preseason game in the NBA. I know it doesn't count. I know it's not a real basket, but I think for someone like Luke, who's openly talked about really wanting to be an NBA player, I thought that was a really cool moment. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the end of the bench guys that got in. I thought it was cool that Kenny played almost everybody. I believe there were 3 guys that didn't play. We'll see if they play later on in the preseason. I don't know what Kenny Atkinson's going to do. I don't know how he's going to handle this, but there's still so much more to watch for with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So make sure you keep it locked right here at Locked On Cavs. Thank you for making this show your first listen today. Hope you make this show your first listen tomorrow as we talk about the Cavs' second preseason game as they take on the Indiana Pacers Thursday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Of course, I will be there. I will have a reaction afterwards. So keep it locked here to Locked On Cavs. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. And I will be back tomorrow with more Locked On Cavs.